Welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. It is Friday. It is Friday the 13th, the best day of the week, the Friday. We're talking about Islam. We help Muslims and non-Muslims alike to understand and handle Islam in the 21st century. We do that with the help of a panel. We do this with the help of people who are in the chat, and we do this with the help of people later commenting. And I just realized I haven't looked at the comment of last week's video. I don't know why. Hello guys, welcome Thunder and Rob. How are you guys doing?
Hi everybody, I'm fine, just another week, and I think it's our first week in this country of lockdown, so it's the new paradigm, the new normal. Hope everyone else is coping and dealing with the situation around the world at the moment, and welcome to the show, everyone.
Yep, good evening to everybody. Looking forward to it. Good evening to my fellow panelists.
Great stuff. Yeah, we've been spending some time on Discord this week, chatting with Muslims, which is always fun.
Hopefully those comments stops.
Sorry?
Hopefully you've got those comments.
Yeah, I've got those comments. The thing is that I'm hoping that there's going to be a video out that we can critique, because this is just like pure gold, so it's good fun. Okay, if you want to comment, you want a question, or you're curious something, this is the place. If this is an interest in Islam, we ask questions, show facts, we refute false claims, and present the reality of Islam, but we don't attack. We're not aggressive, we're not destructive and antagonistic, and definitely not towards the people, the Muslims. What we do is we look at Islam, preferably the Koran. Now, we embrace free speech, criticism, factual and constructive criticism, if possible. Like I said, this live stream goes to YouTube and Facebook, and you have three ways of participating, either in the written chat live, join the panel live, or then watch and comment the show afterwards. Anyone can join to comment, critique, contribute, or question. Don't go to Patreon or PayPal. Everything is free. What we do is we have some news, we have some Krazy Komments, we have a Quran segment, and then a discussion on the theme of the month, which still is, for some odd reason, because it's so much fun, crazy, lazy Dawah. And then followed by integrating the live chat, ending with a Hadith of the week. So if you have any, especially if you're a Muslim, if you have any idea, if you want to provide input or something, you can either let us know, and then we will invite you in here on the panel. If anybody wants to contribute with a topic, please contact us, and you can have your own platform. Even if you want to talk about Islam, if you want to show us something about Islam, you're more than welcome to do so. We will go and talk about it later. And with that, I also welcome the people in the chat. There's a couple of thousand people already watching us live. Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you. Welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. Oh my God, 7 a.m. in Melbourne. Yeah, I remember with Klingshaw, this was always an issue because he had to get up early. This was always terrible. And we had Harris Sultan on, and he was also complaining. And he was on the show a couple of times, but then it's simply too early. And
yeah, 6 in the morning or something,
later.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, this is terrible. So we can't do this. Okay, then let's start with the news. I have two items, which is actually quite strange, because I found two opinion pieces next to each other on the same day, showing how torn Islam really is. Because the one says Islam is not in a crisis, but liberalism is. And then next to it, it said, the UAE announces relaxing of Islamic laws for personal freedoms. Now, this is the opposite. I don't know how this fits together, and how you can consolidate that with being a Muslim, when at the same time you have Islam growing, which means a restriction of personal freedoms, And at the same time, it's the relaxation of Islamic laws providing for personal freedoms. So this is quite funny in my eyes. And they're right next to each other.
Did they say what those laws are that they're relaxing, or is it going to be like an ambiguous statement that could be open for interpretation?
No, they give examples. For example, I mean, if you've been to Dubai, it's always been handled like that, but it's never been sanctioned. I mean, there have been different phases where, I don't know if people remember in the beginning when they had the island and things like that, or the Pearl in Doha and things like that. Then or Jazz Island in Abu Dhabi, because they said this is not Allah-made land, but human-made land, therefore the laws don't work there, so therefore you're allowed to drink alcohol there. Then this was renounced, and now it's been relaxed again. So it's all about alcohol and sex. Okay, this seems to be the central thing in Islam. So in the UAE, they're now relaxing the laws for alcohol and sex. In other words, if you're a foreigner, I mean, I was always like really shit scared of getting involved with any girl. I mean, people have been thrown in jail just because hotel staff noticed that a girl was entering the room of a guy or somebody was walking along the corridor.
So they're trying to replicate. So in effect, so by relaxing the laws, it just allows more fornication and more alcohol to be consumed. I mean, this sounds like a very much a Belinda Carlisle song. Ooh, baby, do you know what that's worth? We can make heaven a place on earth. So they're bringing Islamic heaven to earth. Then is that what they're trying to do in UAE?
Well, this, yeah, maybe that's why. Okay, maybe people don't understand this. Being a Muslim means that what you're doing is you are restraining yourself from alcohol and sex here on earth so that you can go to heaven where you can have sex and alcohol forever. You know, this is quite strange. And this is what this is referring to. And it's strange that it should be alcohol and sex. So what they're doing is if you are not married and you are not a Muslim, because face it, 90% of those countries are expats. So for those people, then it is now possible to drink more alcohol if they want to in public and things like that without having to be afraid. Because there were people who were arrested if they were non-Muslims and carrying alcohol in the car without a license. I mean, I was always very careful to carry the license, and you have very strict laws that you have to go because there's only one shop where you can buy it, which of course is owned by the cousin of the sheikh or whatever. And then you have to go straight home, unload it there so that no Muslim can see this. But come on, we have people come and say, well, we'll wash your car and then you can give us 2 beers for this or something like that. So, reality and the human factor are still strong. Oh, and by the way, in case you're wondering, my avatar, this is my mum. Okay, so this is taken from a photo. I'm just taking this part because last time, remember, we had somebody who said, well, can I just, instead of a caricature or cartoon of Muhammad, will you do the same for your mother? And I said, yes, I don't have a problem with that. It's part of freedom of expression. So that's what you're seeing. This is my mother. I don't have a problem with that. There's nothing that anyone can do with that. I don't know if anybody else might or should or whatever have a problem. I don't know. Okay, to continue, the second item that I found was a UAE minister, Gargash, rejected accusations against French President Macron that he seeks to exclude Muslims. So he is protecting France in their stance that they have this freedom of expression and they, being non-Muslims, are quite okay and in their right to display anything that they want. If somebody on the other part of the globe feels offended by this, well, then they are free to do so. Just let us know when you're finished. In opposition to this, we have Iran's Khamenei. He condemns the French and, in air quotes, support of Prophet caricatures. So he says France is supporting this, which they're not doing. France is just saying you're allowed to publish whatever, we have freedom of expression. So they don't support this of Prophet caricatures. And then Muslim communities have called for a boycott of French goods. So Muslims and somebody like Iran's Khamenei say, no, you're not allowed to show the Prophet, even if you're not a Muslim, even if you have a liberal country, you're not allowed to do that. We determine what you are allowed to put into your schools, into your newspapers, on television. We determine what you are allowed to say. And somebody like the UAE minister says, no, it's France and they have the right to self-determine. So we have these huge contradictions within Islam. And it shows how torn Islam actually is. It shows how Islam is really struggling to come to terms with the 21st century. It shows that there are people who are perfectly capable of understanding that Islam in its current form cannot survive today in the 21st century. So it needs to somehow change, update, it needs to, I don't know what you want to call it. There needs to be some sort of a reformation of Islam for it to go and survive.
But the thing is, though, stops him. If you start reforming it, then what in effect you're saying is when the book itself makes it clear that it's a book for all mankind, a book for all time, that was up in heaven for millions, billions, trillions of years before it came to earth, before it was revealed, then in effect what you're saying by implication, or the Muslim, if they're going to try and reform it, is Allah is a liar. It was a book in heaven for 50 or 1,000 years or whatever before man was created, because I think that was what Asim Halakim said 2 weeks ago when I was listening to him. Then for a book to be up in heaven for that amount of time to be revealed, that only has a 1,400-year lifespan. I mean, already there are problems with abrogation because at best, because we've had this discussion before, at best, if you consider some verses were revealed the very first year of Muhammad's prophethood, and then giving Muslims the benefit here, then they get abrogated the year of his death. That means that those thousands of years old laws were abrogated because they only had to serve the 20-year lifespan. What you're saying is, for this Reformation, then Allah's laws only had a 1,400-year lifespan. See, for me, I think we've had this discussion many times. When you start reforming, then you're picking and choosing what you will apply and what you won't apply. It ceases becoming what it's supposed to be. So I think that's going to be hard to do.
Yeah, but Christians have managed.
They've compromised, with the greatest respect.
Yes,
they've compromised. Yeah,
exactly. So this is up to, and the thing is, what you've just mentioned is true because you have the tools to do it. You can always go and say, well, this is abrogation. This is this. Some verses are ambiguous, others are not. So it's a matter of pick and choose anyway. So why not be consistent? Go and be. I don't know the what you call it, the buffet Muslim. Go and get the what you call this. There is a conference. It's the OIC. There's a conference of the top clerics within Islam. They were called together. There's 150 of them. They were called together the last time because there was a Muslim who went up to the space station, the ISS, and they had to find ways of how to deal with prayer. Now they had to compromise. The poor guy couldn't pray 5 times a day when you're going around every 90 minutes. That does not work. So they had to, sit together and they had to discuss how does the Muslim handle being on the ISS.
But
Now,
then,
sorry.
But then the thing is, I understand that point because it's the principle of the Islam is still there. It's just the direction of the Qibla and how many times you pray. Totally get that, but it's the whole thing when it's on earth and you're asking, for instance, can a man have 4 wives? Can he beat his wife? What's the position of a Jew and a Christian and an idolater in the eyes of a Muslim? Are they still kuffar? It's those sort of principles. Which ones do you picking out? And then what happens is, if you start picking it like that salt out of pepper, you end up with something analogous to the splitting. When I hear what you're saying about the reform, but it splits churches and puts them at loggerheads. For instance, the Catholic Church and the Protestants. And though they may not necessarily have always fought sword to sword on a field, they have actually fought politically. You'll find historically, for instance, the Catholics have always supported fascist governments, whereas the Protestants have always supported democracies. So though they don't necessarily fight openly in the field with swords in the traditional sense. They have fought politically through history since the splitting of the churches, and that could be a little bit more devastating if Islam goes down that way, because with the churches, they can't use the Bible to shed blood. It's just frankly impossible. Whereas the Quran, as we've seen since its inception, does spill blood. I mean, the very first wars you and I know was the Ridda Wars, which was the wars of apostasy. That could start happening again if you start compromising.
Well, like I said, you have the tools, you have everything available in the Quran to go and enact it. You just need to sell it to the public. You just need to tell people, look, these are the sentences that Allah was talking about, which are ambiguous, and those are the ones who are not. These are the ones who are literal. These are the ones that are more metaphorical. So what you have is you have the instruments available. You just need to go and enact them. Then you say, well, these were abrogated, and now you make it clear these were abrogated. Why? And just like the suggestion by KSA when they said, well, we need to go and fix all the mistakes in the Quran. I was in a chat last night on Discord with some these are kids, Muslim kids, and they were arguing that I cannot say that there is anything wrong with Islam. So I walked them through a couple of these mistakes, and they simply will not accept them. So they will go to a certain degree, they will follow you, but then when it comes to that red line, they will stop, shy away, and then start mocking you and start insulting you and blah, 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 all that. But they will not stay with you. They will not go all the way to find what the real mistake is. And that is quite amazing. The cognitive dissonance that you see there, where they realize, oh fuck, this guy is taking us somewhere where it's dangerous because it's wrong, and they quickly run away from this. But they're not using the instruments available to them, which they could be doing. Anyway, so this news article for me really shows, or these like 4 things or 5 things show how Islam is being torn apart, how this is a roller coaster ride, how it's really, really tough for them, how they see this at the moment. Okay. Rob has found the recording. Okay, excellent. All right, guys, let's go to some crazy comments. Now, most of these are from Rob, so I'll have to get Rob to talk about what these are. This is the Hadith of the week.
You're going to go full screen? Oh, there you go. Let's make you full screen there.
I'll do it like this.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so we're visiting a Muslim Discord, so if anybody wants the link for that, don't know if we want to advertise it. Yeah, I suppose you can if you want to. Join us on Discord and we'll give you the link to that server. Stops and I and a few others have had some, let's just say, interesting discussions on the server. And this is just one of the comments that I picked up here. This particular person was responding to somebody else saying, does he know that the tafsirs used this verse to prove the earth is sphere? As if the tafsirs can prove a verse to prove the earth is sphere, we need evidence to prove the earth is a sphere. So firstly, the tafsirs are now having to, in this flawed comment here, that they have to infer what they think the Quran means, but that doesn't, you can't use a verse to prove the earth is sphere. You've got to use evidence to prove what the verse claims. Muslims often have this confusion, right? They think the Quran is proof of something. No, it's a book of claims, and we need to look outside of the Quran to see whether, especially the claims about reality, are confirmed or falsified. I mean, it can have internal contradictions, and Stops and I, and I'm sure Thunderous think that that's the case. But for evidence to prove that the earth is a sphere, you can't be looking at the Quran. It makes a claim about the earth, and so people who are writing tafsirs are not going to be able to get evidence from the Quran. So I just thought that was fascinating sort of thought process, and this particular person isn't alone. A lot of Muslims I come across have that view.
Yeah. And I've now, because I used to shy away from the word prove, I've now sort of abandoned this, and I don't care anymore. So I've just updated myself to not balk at this immediately.
I think stops. It's okay if you ask the person, what do you mean by prove? Because the layperson simply means, can you demonstrate or whatever. They're
Exactly.
not in any way sort of philosophically or mathematically literate to talk about that high level proofs, quote unquote. So when they say prove, I mean, as long as I know what the person says, I'll say, what do you understand by that? If I think I'm speaking to somebody that's more knowledgeable, then I'll ask them. But otherwise, I'll say, what you mean is like demonstrate or give you reasons for or justify why I think X. And if they agree, then, then it's synonymous in a layman's language.
I think Jesus is no, there's no Jesus in the Quran. There's only Isa, because what they're saying, there's an Isa who was not married, who was not crucified, who was not anything. So there's no similarity to Jesus. And also he was like a couple of thousand years beforehand, because he is the grandson of Imran and the nephew of Moses and Aaron. So there's no similarity between the Isa in the Quran and the Jesus in Christianity. Most Muslims don't even know that. I don't know why. Okay, then we have here the next one, which is, I don't know why Muslims still have a problem with this. Doesn't matter how you dress it. A theory is a theory. Big Bang theory, gravity theory, evolution theory. And then the thing is, theory is not a proven fact. Gravity, Big Bang, evolution are man-made theories, because Muslims still have a problem understanding what theories are. And I don't know why we have to explain it to them that the gravity is a theory. I don't know why. So it's quite strange. Here's
Stops
another one
before you
for Rob.
continue.
Yeah.
I just want to welcome Cloud. Cloud, if
there you go.
is here with us. Cloud, good evening. Welcome to you. Cloud is sort of somebody that's, I don't know, he's going to maybe just share a quick little bit about himself, but he joined us on Discord. He's been somewhat active on the Muslim server as well. And he wanted to join us tonight to see what it's all about and so forth. So, Cloud, welcome. Good evening. So, how are you?
Not too bad. Thanks, guys, for having me on.
I can't
It's
hear
an
you at the
honor.
moment. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
There
Hear
you
me
go.
now?
Now we can hear you a bit better.
Yeah.
It's the new technology.
Yeah, there we go. Great. Maybe just tell us a bit about yourself, what your worldview is, to use that term, and just whatever you feel comfortable sharing with us, and then we'll go through and just give us a few of your comments as we go along.
Sure. So, yeah, I've been an atheist for, about 36 years. I'm 36 years old. Worldview, I always find that one kind of tricky, because your views tend to change as you grow based on experience, right? So it's kind of, it's a constant developing, evolving thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Was there anything else you'd like to know?
No,
I like
that's
arguing
cool.
against Muslims.
Well, then you're in the right place. Just so you know, stop spamming. And Islamo Borg is our Christian colleague here. That is a fellow panelist and is also a vehement critic of Islam, not all Muslims, which is what we often say. And we focus on Islam specifically. You and I had a chat before, so that's the only worldview that we focus on here. And so
I'm also an ex-Muslim. I was going to say I'm also an ex-Muslim. So I'm an ex-Muslim that was an evolutionist that's now a theist.
Well, we can't all be perfect.
And we're going to be
you do
joined
look a
in
little bit like a young Matt Dillahunty, by the way. I don't know if anybody's told you that, but there you go. That's for you, Cloud. Do you know Matt Dillahunty?
Yeah, is it because I'm bald and he's bald? I met
And
her.
beard as well?
Similar face,
Well, that's true.
or head and similar beard.
Yeah.
Things like that.
I would say you are too as well. And no, that's good. So we're going to go through some crazy comments here. We'll do a little bit of just jump in when you feel like commenting. And towards the latter half of the show, we're going to critique a video, a Muslim trying to convert a Christian. Because normally we do Muslims versus atheists, but and Thunderous has got some interesting views on that. But this one will be right up Thunderous's alley, because it's a Christian who's going to potentially be converted, quote unquote, to an atheist. So we'll see how that goes.
And we're going to be joined in a little while by a Muslim. Smart Cat is going to join us, he said. He's still running errands, so as soon as he's settled down, he's going to join us, so that's okay. Okay, what we're doing at the moment, we're just going through some comments that we picked up, either on Discord server or on videos that we come across. This is Rob's contribution. There's a guy on this Muslim channel, Wayfarer. Okay, so he's a kid with a chip on his shoulder. He thinks he's got everything under control, and he doesn't like it if he gets challenged. He gets really out of it.
Yeah.
Wayfarer's
So
good.
sorry, what was that?
I say Wayfarer is good. He and I actually have a bit of a history, right? So I met
okay.
him on a totally different channel, but we can kind of have like good discussions, him and I, even though we don't see eye to eye. It's at least somewhat productive.
Okay, you did better than me. Normally, I'm pretty good with most Muslims, and I'm fairly charitable. But I just found a lot of sophistry going on there, and sort of the condescending attitude that he seems to, fancy that he knows a lot. And this comment is a great example. Stops if you just bring it up full screen again, because he asked, can you prove? I can't remember what the comment was. Something to me, and I said you got to presuppose your memory, the reliability of your memory. And he says, man, he thinks I presuppose my memory for any of the arguments I've made, as if I made any arguments that revolves around me. I think that comment sort of tells us a lot about his sort of lack of, and I'm not a philosopher by any stretch. I'm not even a student, but lack of philosophical reading. If you speak to people who have done this, and I've listened to many different people and read a little bit here and there, there's certain things. One of the great guys, I don't know if you've ever come across him, Cloud, is a guy called Ozymandias Ramesses II. He's an atheist. He's not a professional philosopher, but he taught undergraduates. He was a specialist in epistemology. We have people like Alex Malpass, and others, and they're Christian philosophers as well. And most of them, I would imagine, will tell you that there's certain presuppositions that you require in order to get off the ground, and they're self-attesting. In other words, I can't even make the statement and then think that I've made that statement without presupposing my reliability of my memory. So even an experience that somebody claims to have, they're going to presuppose that they remembered they had an experience. And so I just thought this was fascinating, because he was asking me something about the memory or whatever it was, and I said, no, I presuppose reliability of my memory, and so do you. And this was the sort of response that we.
Yeah, but
we
he
got
doesn't
back.
accept it.
Well,
He doesn't accept what?
That you need to presuppose it.
Yeah. Well, obviously he's mistaken about that. If one just thinks about it a little bit, then he would hopefully come to that conclusion, but maybe not. I think when the Muslims are around each other, then they're less likely to concede anything or think a little bit deeper. It's more of a show of because that's what I've come across for the years I've been doing this. There's the ego there, and nobody wants to concede anything, or very rarely. I mean, you'll get the odd Muslim that will concede something, but somebody like this likely won't. It's really an issue when somebody hasn't attempted to even read the entire Quran, let alone study it, and then tries to make an argument against it. I think this was against another Muslim there. Humble yourself. So let's just be clear here, and I'm sure Thunderous and everybody else would agree. I don't need to read the entire Bible, Bhagavad Gita, or anything else. If I find something that I think either is an internal contradiction or contradicts reality, I don't need to look outside the book. And if you're going to claim that somewhere else in the book answers that question or conflicts with that question, well, you can bring something that says, oh, well, there's somewhere else in the book that answers it. But in the case of Islam, of course, it's supposed to be a clear, concise, complete and error-free book for all people. So you don't need to read the entire Quran. And James SC, one of our other colleagues, is a great testament to that. He's read a lot more of the secondary and tertiary sources. He hasn't read the entire Quran, but he brings like really good arguments as well. So the idea that you have to read the entire Quran before you can bring an argument, of course, is utterly fallacious as well.
Absolutely. I mean, look at when I was having my discussion. Ah, crap! You're going into that.
Well, the only reason I brought that up. Your Stops, so just before you swap over, just go back to the other one for a moment, Stops, because you wanted to say something there, Cloud. We'll come to that in a minute. I just thought that was gold, that one. What were you saying about this, or about?
I don't remember that thing about normalizing. Just remind.
Okay, let's go there, Stops. Let's go there. Yeah. Just so people know, we some of us went to the Muslim server, and I don't know if I started. I think I did, but I
you started it. Yeah.
Okay. Because they wanted to know what was the problem, and I said, well, let's just go straight to the knockdown argument, the irrefutable, inheritance. And I didn't walk them all through it, but they'd heard about it before. And again, this fellow thought that he was the smart guy who was going to come and because he's up for answering anything, right? He'll refute, rebut whatever the case is, any argument against Islam, so he claims. And so we went through this myself, stops. I think Cloud was involved, a couple of other people from the server, etc. And so we went through this on and off over a couple of days. And he uses something called normalization, which is essentially another version of awal. Because what he originally was explaining.
Are you aware this is wrong, all right? This is not normalization.
Yeah, by the way, I wanted to, I couldn't remember who it was. That was you. I had no idea what the hell normalizing numbers were, so I had to go in and I wanted to make sure they're using the right terms. So I'm like, look, this is what you're using. And they're like, yeah. So I went onto Google and I searched this, and I found something online that explains normalizing, and I sent him the link. I'm like, is this what you're talking about? And he's like, oh, crap, have I been using the wrong thing? I'm
Exactly.
like, what? This isn't what you're
I
talking
explained
about?
it to him. I told him what normalization actually
So
is,
did he
and when
agree,
you use it,
Cloud?
and where you use it, and how you use it, but he didn't understand it.
So did he concede that he'd been using the wrong term?
No, not to be.
No, no. I'll show you my DM after. I'll block his name out because I don't want to be that douche.
Okay.
But I'll highlight, and it shows exactly where he's like, have I been using the wrong term? Am I actually talking about this other thing? Here, let me actually, you know what? I'll read it out to you. So you guys go on, and I'll.
Okay, so he got the wrong word because he was very adamant in the chat that because I explained what I understood by normalization from the video they had sent me, right? Because there was this video they kept posting. It was about 50 minutes long, and I watched about 10 minutes of this video, and immediately I saw like an error in the first few minutes, but I watched on a little bit further until the explanation was done. I was like, no, the guy got off to a rocky start there. Not a rocky start, a fallacious start. And so that's what I was saying to him, because that's what the guy used in the video. So I said, hey, no, you don't know what normalization was. So he was trying to make as if I didn't know what it was, and I was quoting that particular video. But then he went through various things claiming that the fractions don't change, you just change the numbers. But then he posted this, of course, so I took a snapshot of this, and I think this is all we need, right? Because the one on the left-hand side, for those who are watching, is what the Quran suggests needs to be divided up, and the one on the right is how humans have reinterpreted that to ensure that it comes out at 100% instead of 112%. They're still arguing, of course, that this can be done, and it doesn't conflict with the Quran.
So I found it, and his response, I'm like, okay, I'm literally only interested in the studying of normalize. He was going on about other crap I didn't care about. And I'm like, the link I sent, is this what you're talking about? Where he replies with, wait, have I confused normalization with reduced proportionately? He
Reducing
misspelled the word.
proportionally.
Yeah, and I'm like, wait, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. If you don't know what you're talking about and you're saying these things, don't you think before you shoot your mouth off your brain?
Yeah, exactly.
But Stops, you said you tried to help him out anyway, and he wasn't having it.
No, he didn't. He wasn't
not at all.
interested.
But I think that's why
You
Cloud
were
is
there,
what-
Cloud, right? You were there.
Yeah, in fact, what I got involved on that, no shit, I was correcting his math.
Yeah,
And
I think
actually-
we're all doing that.
Well, that's it, but his equations he was giving, he was coming up to the wrong answer, and I'm like I suck at math. So for me to be correcting someone else on math would blow my life mind. I'm the guy who goes 1 + 1 is pizza.
Okay.
But I think this thing says it all, right? Because if you think the Quran is inerrant and any change is forbidden, then you've just shot yourself in the foot with this sort of thing. But again, in my experience, Stops and I have done this for quite a while, probably spoken to at least 50 Muslims on this and walked some of them through like literally step by step. They won't accept it, right? Their presupposition is, as Thunders will remind us when he was a Muslim, that the Quran cannot be mistaken. So whatever happens, they're coming from the position that it's impossible for it to be mistaken. You guys must be making a mistake. And with that in mind, they will say or do literally, as we see on the screen, anything to show that the Quran cannot be mistaken, which is a very sad indictment for what a human brain or how a human brain can do gymnastics when it's under pressure to not concede that their book could be wrong.
Well, of course.
And I really did this simple. I really, because it's exactly what Cloud does. I presume that not everybody is a mathematician. So I go and I say, what is it that you are? What is the result of what you are giving the three daughters? because he kept on telling me, yeah, it's 66, it's 59. I said, no, don't give me this. Give me the result, the end result. If you take 9 oranges, and he switched off because he couldn't handle it. Then he came back and said, well, let's use 240 or 24. I said, well, it doesn't matter. Just give me a number. Give me a result. And then he says, well, it's 14. I said, great. Now go to the Quran. And how much is 2/3 out of 24? Well, it's 16. So the Quran says 16. Your scholar says 14. Which one do you trust? Boof, completely blown. He couldn't accept it. He couldn't get any further than that. So
Just on the subject of numbers, while I've got it mindful in my mind, I was asked to go on another show and do a discussion about, I know it's the Hadith, but it's relative to numbers, about Islam and the 124,000 prophets conundrum. And I did mention you on there, Stops. It was you that motivated me to work out the figures. And I think I did it on this show once a couple of years ago, maybe. But because I used the biblical narrative as a support basis, I did a rather extended one on the other show. And another form of cognitive dissonance with figures is, if I'll mention it briefly, with Adam to Jesus, if you look at the biblical narrative, you've got 73 generations, whereas if you look at all standard Islamic genealogies, you've got Adam to Muhammad with 21 generations. And then but you have to account for the 540 years between Jesus and Muhammad, because Muhammad was born 540 years.
Adam was something like 1,000 years old.
Right, not in biblical, in the Bible maybe, but we're not in Islam. I don't think he even actually gives a figure. So he gives out how tall he is in the Hadith, but not how old. But the point I'm trying to make is, you have 24,000 prophets that you have to divide by 21 different generations, which works out about 5,600 prophets per generation. Right.
Okay,
the thing is, and I went into the figures as well, that because at the moment on Earth we have a population of nearly 7 billion. When I was born in 1968, it was 3.6 billion. At the turn of the century, it was 1.9 billion. And if you go to the second century, you've got, I think if I remember the figures, it was 190 million, right? Then today, I think you've got something like 270, because Muslims will say, well, there was a prophet for every land. Well, at the moment, we've got 275 lands recognized. But the further back in time that you go, you've got less lands. For instance, Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh, and Afghanistan were all one country. You see the problem with the figures. The further back in time you go, the less human beings you've got and the less land you've got. But with Islamic numerology, you've got 5,600 prophets at any one given time. And if all of them only did 1 year's service as a prophet, okay, and they did it concurrently, you've got an even bigger problem, because you have flooded. Right, because what you'll know, it'll be the problem is, Stops. You've got 123,999 years of prophets, and you've got to split 123,999 years by 21 generations. Do you see the numbers don't stack? I've done a rather extended discussion on it. Maybe you'll give me the opportunity to do it again on this show. But
as soon as you want to, you've got a platform. Sure, just prepare it step by step.
I've done it.
Because what you're doing at the moment, it's a little bit dicey and flaky. To follow along is a bit difficult. But if you prepare this with some slides, perfect.
Oh yeah, I've done it. I mentioned it succinctly, briefly now, but yeah, I've done it. But the reason why I mention it now is because Islam has a problem with figures. It's not just the inheritance. There's this. You've got 90 for Adam. If you remember, I did that one as well, which has Abraham being 40 foot tall, so on and so forth. If I digress, yes, because if you Adam, the discussion I did on this show, I've yet to do it for another one. There's a hadith that says that Adam is 90 foot tall, but in the hadith, see, Muslims will turn around and say that. Am I digressing, or shall I carry on with this?
No. Let's keep this as a separate topic, because you're going way off at the moment.
Yeah, that's why.
And it's very difficult to follow along without any kind of visual material.
Yeah. Okay.
But it would be
Let's
nice to have
discuss
this as a
another time.
separate issue. If you would, that would be great.
Yep, and just say it and I'll do it.
Super. Next week. No, you let us know when you got the material, then we can do it anytime. We can slot it
Okay.
anytime.
Yeah, okay then. Let's arrange it.
All right, next one from Wayfarer. Rob, go.
As you know, the problem is that we should be fascinated with these verses, but the opposite happens to some people. Yakia, I guess it is. I spent a week just studying 7 verses in Al-Fatiha. I'm still not done. He spent a week studying 7 verses from a book that is supposed to be clear guidance for mankind. If it takes this long for somebody who fancies themselves some sort of intellectual, what chances has the rest of the Muslims got to remotely understand anything that's going on there, other than what they're being told? When Stop Sinai and I'm sure Cloud and Thunder has come across some Muslims, not all, they are just repeating back what they've heard from some Muslims somewhere, be it in the mosque or somewhere else. They either haven't read the Quran, or if they have, it's something they've got to just get done to read it. They don't really understand something. So this fellow's taken a week to study, so that's a verse pretty much a day. If it takes you that long to understand the verses in your book, then no wonder life is a test for you. It can't be that this book is clear, that you can really understand it. It takes a deep thought, in which case people are more and more likely to make mistakes, not understand it, have different interpretations. You're kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
I'm kind of curious what verses they are, right? Like, how complicated could it really be? That's kind of where I go with that. Like, is it really ambiguous crap, or is it pretty straightforward and you're just trying to find some way to put a spin on it? There's just not enough there to really make too hard of a judgment call. I'm trying to be charitable, right?
Well, take the first one. In the name of Allah, the most merciful.
Yeah, but is that one of those 7 verses?
Yes, that's the first one. That's the first sentence in the Quran.
Yeah, but this just
'cause
says. Yeah, but this doesn't say the first 7 verses. It's just he just spent a week studying 7
Oh,
verses.
sorry. Al-Fatiha is the opening. It's the first chapter of the Quran and consists only of 7 sentences.
So before it gets into any complicated crap, he's confused?
Yes.
Yeah, so the first 7 surahs of the first verse, right, the very beginning of the Quran. And by the way, if you look at it,
not surah.
yeah, because he's saying Al-Fatiha, which is the first
Al-Fatiha is the
chapter.
opening. This is the surah. It is the chapter, and it consists of 7 sentences. That's it. And the first sentence is in the name of God, the most merciful. That's it.
So the first 7 sentences of the book, and it takes you 7 weeks? No, it takes you
A week to understand seven sentences. Yeah.
So it's 7 days for 7 sentences. And the first sentence is in the name of God, the most merciful, the all merciful, or the most gracious, the all merciful. So that's it.
So it takes a day to analyze that?
Yeah.
What's the next one? Like,
All praises and thanks be to Allah, the Lord of the universe.
I think there's a possibility when Allah says the most gracious, most merciful, he must be looking for evidence of seeing that in Allah's personality in any demonstration that he's made it manifest, and he can't find it. That might be why it's taken so long. Any demonstration of Allah actually manifesting those personal traits that he claims he has.
he's not confused. He's
Yeah, well, I mean, you
saying
can
it
always
has-
claim anything's got depth to it, right?
Look,
I fancy ice cream. That's got depth to it. If I start to give you everything about fancying ice cream, from the neurons, how I got here, I can also make up a lot of stuff and say there's a lot of depth to it, right? So, I mean, that's a trivial claim. So I don't think that's, and it's subjective. So
And the thing
thanks
is,
for that.
we are
And the
taking
book is supposed
apart-
to be clear anyway.
And we are taking apart the Quran every single week. So go back to where we analyzed the first sentence in the Quran and see what we found with it. It's very easy. It totally disproves everything that you know about the Quran, but it's okay. That's the way that you read it. But it took us 10 minutes to get through the whole thing, not 7 days.
I've spoken to a few Muslims, and when they're trying to explain, I'm asking questions like, is your book the inherent, infallible word of God? And yes, then why is it so confusing? It's either your God's an incompetent author,
Exactly,
or he doesn't
yeah.
exist. Give me a third option. You have to choose one of those two. To me,
Well, they have,
it should be
I mean,
more,
they have,
more direct.
yeah, I think that they have to go with that it is well, at least some verses, right? Even though the Quran contradicts itself, says it's clear, and in other verses there's some ambiguity, etc. And there's some surahs, as Stops and I've pointed out, about 23 as it stops, ALM, right?
29.
Nobody knows what this. There's no human
Yeah.
on earth that understands what this means. So this is a code that Allah wrote, presumably for mankind, but only Allah knows. So if I give you a book to study for something, or I want you to understand it, and I put a code in that is unbreakable, or I don't give you any information about it that only I know, then and tell you that this is for you, you're going to look at me a little bit skew. And I think Stops has got a good his sort of hypothesis is in fact that it's like somebody's initials that was maybe one of the authors or translators or whatever the case is. So maybe it's initials, but it's got copied into the Quran as if it's got some meaning to it. And of course, no human has any understanding of what it is.
But they claim
Okay.
it's the miracle. It's the miracle of Allah, these letters.
It must be,
They are-
yeah.
I mean, the question for that sort of stuff, right? When somebody claims a miracle, the first question comes to my mind is, because I'm thinking this is unfalsifiable. I say to them, what would need to be the case for you to agree that it wasn't a miracle? Because now the brain has to actually try and engage, or I hope that the brain tries to engage with that sort of question. Because to them, it's like it's a miracle. Well, tell me what would need to happen in the Quran for it not to be a miracle. And if you can't, then is your claim like ALM unfalsifiable? If it is, well, then you can pat yourself on the back, but that's of no interest to anybody who's paying attention, is it? I could say DWP. There you go. What does
Yeah,
that
I
mean?
made a video
Whatever
doing
I make
that
up.
where I said the surah like it, and I said, well, it's LOL, LMAO, and so on. So I did the same thing, and I showed, well, now I've done something like the Quran, because that's what the Quran does.
LFMAO? Sorry.
The final crazy comment is by a guy now this is edited, okay, and I don't know what the relativity is a fact, but the theory of relativity is not. If there is somebody that thinks that theory of relativity is a fact, then explain how it can be true that so-called black holes with its... Now, if you click on the read more, there is nothing more coming there.
It's
This is why
coming.
I thought it's quite weird.
Can I just address one of the comments that came up about like God gives you everything, you just hate him? Yeah. How can I hate something that hasn't been demonstrated to exist?
Well, because their worldview is that we've got this information, but we're denying it because we hate God. Well, obviously, I do dislike this concept of a God if it exists, but that's not a reason to deny that the God actually exists, but rather to point out that it's an immoral God, or certainly a God that I wouldn't want anything to do with. It's like one of those, long lost uncles that pitches up on your doorstep that's been homeless or whatever the case is, claims to have been some sort of guru or whatever the case is, and you're like, nah, and then says he's got children there and told you this, that, and the other, and you're like, no, off you go. I don't want anything. It's like Hitchens says, do you move closer to somebody like that or further away when somebody makes those sort of claims, right? You want to sort of distance yourself from them, I guess.
Okay, so we've gone through the crazy comments. Shall we go take a look? I don't know. If we're going to take a look at the video, then we can't do the Quran again. We keep on postponing the same Quran verses every single week. Should we go
Well, we could
through
do them stops and then just run late or something, up to you.
I'm easy. I need your consent. What it is that we're
I
going
don't
to
mind.
do?
What do you, Thunderous? What do you want? Do you want to do the Quran or go straight to the video?
I think prudently, I think if we get the Quran over and done with, otherwise we might miss it this week, and that'll be another week of the Quran not being done. So if we could
All
do
right,
the Quran,
just do 10 verses, something stops. If you've got 20, just do 10 of them at least, and then I suppose we can go from there.
Okay, then let me go to this one. Application window, Reader's Digest, share, cluck. There we go. Okay. We are on chapter 8, and we've done sentences up to 20. Don't turn your back on believers. Allah will weaken non-believers. You will get victory. Obey Allah and His Messenger. Sentence number 21 says, don't say you heard when you don't. Okay,
Aren't they
just as an
all
explanation.
saying
What I'm doing is I'm taking the sentences in the Quran and then percolating them. So I'm sort of reducing them down to provide the essence of the whole thing instead of giving you the whole sentence. So the whole sentence is here, and do not be like those who say we have heard while they do not hear, or something. So this is always like long
your
and
summary,
convoluted and blown up. And what I do is I just take the essence. So I say, don't say you heard when you don't. Okay, so this is what I do in this. Like the next sentence, this can be 4 or 5 lines, and with me, it's just a single line. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get the concept, the real essence of what it says in the Quran. So I read the sentence, I read like 4, 5, 6, 8 different translations. I read the tafsir, I read the commentaries, and then I try and get everything down into one sentence to make it as concise as possible. So sentence 22 is the worst creatures in the sight of Allah are the deaf and dumb who do not use reason.
What point is that not hate speech in the current climate? How long
Well,
have we been saying that for years and years and years? That when you want to listen to the very epitome of hate speech, you go to the Quran. The Quran, for the past 1400 years, has been the example, the gold standard of hate speech. And this is another classic example there. In verse 22, for the worst of beasts. That is, I don't like the word beast there, because when you sometimes look at the image, you might think of, say, a bull or a zebra or something like that. But the reality is, when Islam uses the term beast, it's actually something a bit more despicable than that. When you consider the Muslims' view of a pig, or the Muslims' view of a dog, or something like that, the God has a view of you as a human being less than those creatures there. So that must mean if you're a Muslim, 1.7 billion human beings who claim to ascribe to this religion have no choice, but by default, to have to agree with what their God says. So if this is the opinion of their God, that non-Muslims are the worst of creatures, then we have 1.7 billion human beings who also likewise think, I agree with this God, you as a non-Muslim are the worst of creatures. So when we're looking at hate speech, when we're looking at cartoons and things like that, those are normally produced by a minority, and maybe a greater crowd will align themselves with the thinking of whatever speech is being made. But in this case, nothing will ever exceed 1.7 billion human beings that align themselves with the word of this book and the hate speech contained therein.
Yeah, I mean, look, you want a good example? I watched a lot of the stuff that they're saying in other servers, and I've never seen so much of a group of certain individuals sit there and say, "No, gay should be killed." For what?
Exactly.
For what? For what reason? Like, it's against my religion. Okay, I fuck your religion.
Now, the thing is to see now, I actually have gay friends. They recognize that I might not agree with their lifestyle, but I actually have gay friends. In fact, I've often said, if everybody on the estate that I'm living on happened to be lesbian and gay, I wouldn't have a problem with it at all. In fact, I'd have no loud music disturbing me. I'd have flowers on the roundabout. I'd have flowers going up the drive. I'd have polite people at the shops. I'd have people saying hello to me. I got one drug dealer on my estate, I've got problems. If I've got one burglar on my estate, I've got problems. So when you analyze it, when you look at, say, certain cultures and the bigotry that certain colors and cultures have against homosexuals, you can respectfully say, I don't agree with your lifestyle. And if you speak respectfully to a person of that, okay, they'll actually respect you for it, and there's no prejudice there. But certain religions and cultures have this prejudice there, yet they don't seem to manifest that within their own colors and cultures, with people who are burglars, people who are violent, people who are drug dealers, so on and so forth. And you recognize that, Cloud, because I see you're getting agitated with what I'm saying there, because you recognize what I'm saying there, don't you?
Yeah, and it's just a massive double standard. And it's like, look, you have to play it throughout the board. It's either all or it's none. And yeah, it's just it's infuriating.
the thing is, with a burglar or a thief or any kind of lifestyle like that actually impacts society, impacts neighbors, it impacts the community, and it impacts the estates. A person whose persuasion is to have a same-sex relationship with another person of the same sex does not impact on me whatsoever. It actually, there you go.
But listen to sometimes what they'll say too, because they'll change it. It'll be, oh, okay, no, being gay isn't wrong. It's just the act of having sex while you're gay. Well, so you're going to be gay and celibate your entire life? Well, we have to look at things realistically. And if my neighbor is kicking it up the ass, who cares? Who the hell am I to sit there and say, oh, no, you should be killed. You should burn in hell. Like, the fuck is that? That's madness. That's what that
presumably they think that it's a scourge on humanity, and it'll drag the whole of humanity down, and their book says so probably that's the reason at least a few of them, if not more than a few, can justify it. But I think this particular verse we got on screen now, if indeed the worst creatures are those that are deaf and dumb and do not use reasoning, then all we had, and again, I'm not saying it, that's what the book is saying, then all we have to do is bring them the inheritance error and see who uses reason. And I think we've seen to date that we've never... I've had one, actually, that said, I can't fault what you've said, I'm still going to be a Muslim. Right? So agreeing that there was this error, and not using that word, but saying, I can't fault anything you've shown me, or I've looked at that, I can't fault it, but I'm going to stay a Muslim. But apart from that, every other one of them finds a reason or finds a way not to use reason and to, for example, still want to claim that the inheritance error is not an error, right? And we've got somebody in the chat who tried that from a different point of view, and we've also showed that doesn't work. So there's a few different attempts at this. None of them are successful. But this is what happens when you don't use reason, because you have a book you've got to defend at all costs. And the book itself is saying somebody that does that is the worst of beasts, or worst of living creatures. So that's a bit of an indictment for all of those that can't do maths or don't accept that there's an inheritance error.
And I've realized that I was not able to shorten this. So I had to use it verbatim to bring the essence across. I could not make this shorter. Okay, 23. If Allah would know a good person, they would be made to hear or listen. And if He did listen, they would turn around and refuse. Now, why I put the listen in brackets is because it's not quite clear if you read the different commentaries, which is what. So this is why I added. So if Allah would know, they would be made to hear, but apparently they don't. And if He did, they would turn around and refuse. This is quite funny, because it tells you exactly what has happened, because the best way to make somebody an atheist or a non-Muslim is to have them read the Quran. And this is exactly what it says here. This is quite funny.
I have kind of a weird thing. So that's, if Allah would know, why would it be a would? Why would it be an if?
Yeah.
Doesn't He know? It's not a matter of question at that point. It should be direct. Allah knows, not if He would know. Otherwise,
yeah, that's true in a straightforward reading. But as I learned from a philosopher, when you use an if statement, it's what's the term for it?
It's a challenge.
Specific. It doesn't mean that He doesn't know. But there's like a I'm sure it's a philosophical term that I had in my mind on the tip of my tongue a moment ago, and it's sort of a conditional statement. So if it's the case that we exist, or if something is going on that it's impossible for anything not to be going on, or whatever the case may be, so it's just a conditional statement. It doesn't necessarily mean that He doesn't know. It's just. Now, I'm not so sure that the Quran is that sophisticated to say that, but as far as I understand from a philosopher, when you do that, it's not saying that if or I'm in doubt. It's more if this is the case, then this follows. So it's just a conditional statement, as I understand it from the philosopher.
Yeah, considering the time period that this book is said to have been produced, I know it seems far more unlikely that it's that deep.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so basically it's just saying that...
I don't know what they're trying to say here. I think what... this is one of those normal challenges. I am Allah, I'm the greatest, and come on, if I wanted to, I could make you, but I'm giving you a chance not to. That's all it is. I mean, it's typical.
I guess the most uncharitable interpretation I can get from this is that these are the worst of creatures, right? Following on from the previous verse. So if Allah had found any good, He would have indeed made them hear, or made them listen. I.e., they would have, I think, made them listen sort of contradicts their free will. But if we're super charitable and say it doesn't really mean made, but if He had found good in them, then they would have heard Him in some way. I'm not sure how He would have made them listen. And if He had made them listen, they would have turned back and declined. So in other words, presumably they would have turned back to Him as opposed to being the worst of creatures, if it follows from the previous verse.
And the funny thing is, as you can see from the original in the corpus, that it actually says here, which does not make sense. That is why I put the listen in the brackets, to make this clear, that the Quran in the original version does not make any sense right off the bat. So you need to have this as listen, not just hearing. So, Okay, 24. You who believe, respond to Allah and His Messenger when He calls you to what gives you life, and know that Allah comes between a man and his heart, that to Him you will be gathered. I put 3 question marks there because I have no fucking idea what this is.
Okay, so
to Him you will be gathered.
Yeah, to Him you gather. So in Allah's name, you'll gather together.
Thank you.
Welcome to SmartCat. SmartCat, good evening. SmartCat is our resident Muslim that joins us. SmartCat, let me introduce you to Cloud. He's a fellow atheist and a critic of Islam. So it's 4 here, but we won't overwhelm you. So welcome to SmartCat. He's one of the few brave Muslims who's prepared to come on and give his view. We might disagree, but we can always part and come back and have another discussion. That's not the case with many other Muslims. So welcome.
Hello, gentlemen. I'm happy that you recognize me as an authentic, genuine Muslim. Thank you, Rob. It means a lot.
Great to see you here. Welcome, man. Okay, we're going through the Quran at the moment. We've done the other segments so far, and we have come to a point where I have given up because I do not understand the sentence. I do not know what it says here. I don't know. To Him you will be gathered, and you know that Allah comes between a man and his heart, and that to Him you will be gathered. This is a little bit too much for me. There's too much metaphorical stuff going on here for me to even hazard a guess. Well, I mean, I can.
I guess let's just see. If I'm taking Sai International, because sometimes it's a little easier to read, Yusuf Ali I think is probably more accurate. But if you respond to Allah and His Messenger, when He calls you, i.e. the call to prayer, presumably, or something like that, that gives you life, then, and if He intervenes between you and the heart, in other words, if you recognize God is inside you, or that you have a close relationship with Him, or something like that, then you'll go unto Him. Now that might mean that you feel like you're in communion or communication, or you feel like He's your creator, or maybe it's when you die. I don't know. We could always look at the tafsirs, but even that is just people's opinion, isn't it? Anyway.
Centuries later.
Yeah. So I mean, and again, we could do, we could take the verses and go through and spend a week. We probably only have to spend an hour or two on, let's say, 7 verses, for example. But we could go and look at other people's opinions. But then the question is, well, why do we need to accept their opinions? They weren't with Him at the time anyway, so they're trying to make sense of it like the rest of us.
Are you saying that God gives confusing messages? Impossible.
Well, apparently he's not. If you really understand it and read it deeply and take a week to study it, then per verse or per a day a verse or something, then presumably not. But straightforward readings, as I think you can see, Cloud, and as, if you're with us more often, you'll see the same thing happening, right? Which is they're not easy to understand at all. You really need to, and even if you read 10 of them, because we read one at a time, but even if you read 10 in a row, you'd be scratching your head through half of them. So it's certainly not that clear. But anybody who's an English speaker, right, if the claim is, well, you've got to understand it in Arabic, well, then that disqualifies anybody that is an English speaker that has not taken the time to understand Arabic. But even if they did, even amongst Arab speakers, there's difference of opinion. And here we have people who are supposedly expert linguists that are giving these translations, which millions of Muslims have accepted around the world. So if they aren't reliable, then that certainly nullifies any English speaker. And even if you learned Arabic, you're probably going to be way inferior to any of the these people that have done the translation. So what chance have you got here? How on earth can you verify whether this is in fact accurate, or indeed if you can understand it? Now they'll say to you, go to a scholar. Well, he's just given his opinion, isn't it? So you're left with the opinion of men, which is really not the best way to send a clear message, I would argue.
And this is what I actually agree with. But it's not straightforward. I mean, I just went and read some other explanations and attempts at an explanation, and they're all different. So,
but that's the problem,
anyway.
Isn't it? It's not.
Yeah,
it's
it is.
not straightforward. And we, with a much better understanding and grasp of things, with being able to deeply get into things more than they could back then, right? It shouldn't be this confusing, right? God should have understood, knowing past, present, and future down the road. Hey, my message could be misconstrued. Maybe it needs to be worded in like dumb proof, not so vaguely.
Well, maybe Smart Cat can give us his view on that, as in, like, does he feel like it's crystal clear, and could it have been done any better? And if not, how is it that we battle to understand some of these things?
For one, I look at my perspective is a little different. Like anything in life, it requires baby steps in order to attain proficiency. And that's in everything, whether it's a martial art or a musical instrument or even a religious tradition. Or it's a practice at the end of the day, and it requires baby steps. And you gotta work at your faith. So it's we make the exception because it's faith and it's God orientated. We expect God to do the heavy lifting for us. This is not a perspective that Muslims or people of faith would share with, because they would just draw parallels to other things in life that require constant practice and work and effort to attain some proficiency in anything.
Yeah, but that would be fine, Smart Cat, if you were learning theoretical physics and nobody told you that it was a clear and concise area of expertise or a field of study. If I said to you quantum mechanics is, a clear and concise field of expertise, read this book and you will get a clear understanding of it, then you would expect to have a clear understanding of it. So, yeah, and of course this is, the creator of the universe. So you're saying that, well, he's not burdened with sort of making it clear to us, but I think he is. And the fact that we are honestly doing it, and so are many other people, and they come to different opinions, that should tell you something. How do you establish what is the correct one?
Yes. Well, I'm happy you brought quantum physics up, because, if I try to understand quantum physics, and let's say, hypothetically, I claim that it's very incomprehensible, people would shoot back and say, well, that's because you have low IQ, I mean, if everybody claims that it's easy to understand, and I'm the only one that's not able to understand it, there has to be something wrong with my thinking faculty. But, I'm not about to say that for people that are trying to understand God and they have a hard time understanding God, I'm not going to call them low IQ individuals. I think there's religion. It has to be a personal journey, and it's interesting that for people to go on a spiritual journey, it requires at least a physical first step in a direction that facilitates the spiritual journey, right? So the Quran is an avenue for that. If one were to go on a spiritual journey, it provides many answers for many people all over the world, and that's my perspective on the thing. As for it leads to multiple interpretations. For me, I think this is a flexibility and a blessing and a mercy, So I'm not forced to, commit my intellect to somebody's interpretation in an absolute sense. There's some wiggle room for at least my critical thought or somebody else's critical thought to think otherwise. Now, it's true, if we think otherwise a bit too much, some people will brand us as heretics. And that's a problem with many faith traditions, and it's not exclusive to Islam alone.
The problem I find with something like that is that one, in the example I just want to touch quick, in the example where everybody understands quantum physics except for you, then that doesn't really work too well as an analogy, because we're not dealing, when we're coming to something like the Quran where everybody but you understands it. What we're coming when we look at the Quran is everybody has a completely different opinion. Barely anybody agrees. If they do, it's very small subsets of individuals together, right? So that example doesn't really work. And then you have to deal with the issue where if you weren't claiming truth to something, saying, yeah, this is true, okay, then I really wouldn't have that big of an issue, right? Because you're not making a claim of certainty. But the moment it's, no, the Quran is God's word is true, then it shouldn't be ambiguous. It should be understood by everybody, not so many different misinterpretations. And that is completely on the shoulders of the individual who gave the message, right?
Yeah, but plus you have the problem that Rob just mentioned, is that the Quran says of itself that it is explained and clear. This is the problem.
Yeah, but the other thing as well, when I hear what you just said there, Smart Cat, the question comes to me, what would make it the case that the Quran, you would look at the Quran and go, no, this cannot be from God? Because had it have been the other way around, and it was crystal clear that every human being read it, you would say, well, that's a miracle. Look, God made it so clear every human can read it. But when it isn't clear, you go, no, that's a miracle, because people can have their own interpretations. So I'm wondering for you, what would demonstrate that the Quran is not a miracle? Since you're accepting, either you would likely accept, or unless you're going to claim that if it was crystal clear, that would in fact falsify it. But if that's not your claim, then what would it take for you to accept that the Quran was not from God?
Well, where does one begin? I mean, I understand the question that you're putting towards me, but for me as a Muslim, my bar for miraculous events is very low. Like, I consider the rising of the sun.
That was a good one.
I consider the rising of the sun.
It's an honest answer.
Yeah,
God
I
beat
consider
it.
the rising of the sun. I consider the rising of the sun and the setting of the sun and the appearance of, and the waning and the waxing of the moon to be a miracle. So my bar is substantially lower than yours. You guys require,
Okay.
God
What do you
to appear in front of you.
Okay, that's cool. What do you define a miracle as then? Is it an everyday event that happens all the time that we can't differentiate from any other event? Is that what you call a miracle, or is there some differentiate from a miracle and a non-miracle?
For me, life is a miracle. For me, as a
Well, I'm
Muslim,
asking,
as a
what's
faithful-
not a miracle? What's not a miracle for you?
What's not a miracle? It's hard to say what's not a miracle. I find a lot of things miraculous,
Yeah,
So,
I understand.
I mean,
But then if everything is a miracle, then that kind of makes the term miracle lose all meaning.
Thank you for saying that. That's just what I was going to say, and I'm a theist.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought that would best go unsaid, but you have
Like,
you
for
have
example,
explicitly said it.
Yeah, like because for me, like I consider that how a flower blossoms to be miraculous as God's work. So maybe it's a problem with me and not so much a problem with you. But I mean, it makes me appreciate life more than the average person, I would say.
Smart Cat, just a quick one before we move on. Smart Cat, is it a miracle when a lion kills a zebra and it suffers to death for like 3 or 4 minutes, choking on its own blood while the lion tears into it and grips it? Is that also a miracle?
Yes.
Yeah. I find that for me that's a miracle, because the same way a lion will hunt you, the same way a lion will hunt you. I'm telling you what I find a miracle. The same way a lion shows affection is the same way it hunts.
I understand. For you, everything's a miracle. Okay, I understand. Thanks.
May I ask a question? The question I'd like to ask is the thing for me as somebody who actually believes in a God. Now, I don't believe what Jesus did in the first century, walking on water and things. I believe he did those, but I don't like using the term miracle for the things that he did. For me, the word miracle I don't think fits. But you use the word miracle. Now, for a Muslim, the greatest miracle of all is the Quran. The Quran is the physical miracle. It's the greatest miracle Allah has ever done, is to reveal the Quran. Now, for me, as somebody who actually believes in what Jesus did in the first century, I can't replicate anything Jesus did. I can't turn water into wine. I can't raise the dead. I can't, take people and make them see again if they're blind, like my dad who's 95% blind, or I can't feed 5,000 people. I can't replicate any of those. And yet, when I look at the Quran, I can look at the Quran, I can photocopy it, or I can actually get a pen and piece of paper and replicate what Allah has said. So I can repeat the miracle of Islam, and that's supposed to be the greatest miracle of Allah.
Okay.
Can you reconcile that for me, please?
Sure. The minute you can produce a book that can captivate 1.7 billion people and put another 3 billion people on the fence and create multitude of identities and heritages, then I can give you that. But until then, I think that's a weak claim.
The thing is, Hinduism's been doing it a lot longer. Hinduism's been doing it a lot longer with Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, and such, a lot longer than Islam.
Okay, even better.
All you've got, that's a numbers game. That's a numbers game.
If you can create a book of fiction that can captivate 100,000 people for centuries to come, to the extent that they experience self-autonomy, intellectual renaissances, able to govern themselves, resist foreign invaders, find spiritual enlightenment, find all the things that Muslims have experienced throughout the ages. If you can at least get 100,000 people from your book of fiction, then I'll give you that point.
I think Richard III might be a good shout on that one.
Oh yeah, and another thing, if you can also create a segment of your population that acts irrational and commits terrorism all over the world, and you have another group of people saying these are not the right people of my book of fiction, if you can also do that, that's also I'll give you that.
Let's move on, Stops, otherwise we won't get done here. I don't know how many we've got left, and we've still got the video to do, right? Oh, Stops might have stepped away there.
No. I'm just
you are there.
typing a person who submits to the God of Islam, because we've got somebody on Facebook who's asking a question. All right,
okay, cool.
But I think we should leave it here. Do you know that? Because it's already 15:15, and it's going to take us at least half an hour to get through the video. So, we've managed 4 sentences. But I think we should leave it here and keep it for next week, and maybe the next week do it the other way around. Do the video first, and then do the sentences later, the other way around somehow. Because this is, we're going to be stuck on this.
Yeah, the more panelists we have, the longer everything takes,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is fine.
So this is why I would suggest let's
totally,
leave it for
totally
now.
cool. Yeah.
Go straight to the video, because otherwise we're never going to get through with this. I mean, it's fascinating to have so many views. Please don't get me wrong, okay? I'm fascinated to have so many people with different opinions, all looking at the same thing and all having different opinions on how they understand it. And then I've got somebody in the chat who's desperate, who's abusing grammar, who refuses to acknowledge that there is something like grammar in Arabic, and who's just trying to make a point just to save the book. And it's, for me, it's amazing how somebody can be so obsessed with trying to get something that is wrong to make it look right by simply ignoring everything that is correct, everything that is true, everything that spells out integrity, ethics, or anything, and simply cannot accept that there is a mistake, and simply wants it more than anything else to be correct, even if it is not. And this is...
But that's how indoctrination works, right? It's all brainwashing. And how can you fight that? It's no different, right? Indoctrination, brainwashing. It's all conditioning somebody to believe one thing over any other and to reject anything that flies in the face of it. And it's a hard thing to overcome.
It's starting with a presupposition that the book is correct and we must be wrong. We're just not seeing it correctly, and this has been answered, or words to that effect, right? So if you start from that position, then you can never accept that there's a mistake or anything. And I think Smart gave us an interesting insight into, he believes that everything's a miracle, essentially. So it's an unfalsifiable claim.
Yeah.
So that isn't obviously, that's not particularly interesting to anybody, because anybody could say the same about anything. I think that the 10th dimension is the ultimacy of reality, and everything stems from the 10th dimension. It has no teleology, and everything from that I would consider an interdimensional miracle. How do you prove me wrong? Anything you say to me, I say, yep, that's a miracle. Right?
At that point,
not only is it uninteresting, but it's unfalsifiable, and it allows anybody else to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just responding to somebody here who's coming with basically like really stupid apologetics. I mean, it's
Ooh, what are they saying?
ridiculous.
I can't see. I'm curious.
Rob,
who is the first Muslim? Was Adam a Muslim? That's crazy. That's.
I think Smartcat wanted to say something. Stops.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add one thing to your point. You also have to say, if you disagree with me, it will be very bad news.
No, hang on.
Is that what your God says? Is that what you mean? But you have free will and I love you. Well, your God doesn't say he loves people anyway, so I apologize. That's not meant for you. Cool, alrighty. Are we ready with the video? So basically what will happen here, Cloud, we're going to go through it. Any of us who want to will say stop at certain points, or Stops will stop it himself. He's running it, and then we'll give commentary. It's 22 minutes. This will take us at least until 10 o'clock, probably 10:30, if there's 4 or 5 of us. And obviously we'll give SmartCat a chance to respond as well. But this channel posts videos with a Muslim apologist who goes out on the street and supposedly converts people live on the street from a non-Muslim to a Muslim there and then, and in an hour or less. So we're going to see an example, or supposedly an example of that in this video. Now, I haven't watched this video. I don't know if Stops has. So we're all going to be looking at it for the first time, I think.
Could you put a disclaimer?
Say that again?
What kind of a disclaimer?
This is not representative of all Dawah movements and Muslims around the world.
Okay.
What, that they don't want to convert people?
Representative. This is just one example that we find. It's an arbitrary example that we find on the net where somebody calls himself Dawah is easy and just puts these things out on the web. That's
I
all.
know. I'm somewhat familiar with their work, but I just want a small disclaimer. This is not the representative of all Muslims.
The problem is
presumably but SmartCat, presumably what is representative is that all Muslims are supposed to give dawah, i.e. share the message and hopefully convert people to your view.
Okay. Yes, but I'm not against da'wah fundamentally. I'm just saying, like I think we've talked about this before. I said if it takes somebody 5 minutes to become a Muslim, it will take them 5 minutes not to become a Muslim. I think their method of da'wah is a little, show and tell, for the camera. It doesn't serve any. I don't think it's okay.
Okay, but we have yet to come across any kind of dawah video which makes sense or is compelling or anything like that.
The street, my friend. Yeah. Okay. And you said your name is Alex. Is that right?
Yes.
Oh,
okay. Alex,
I don't hear
sorry,
anything.
just turn this way a little bit, Alex.
Yeah, we can hear it.
Yeah.
It's just
Why
you.
can't I hear it?
Don't know. Oh, where are you playing it through?
And Alex.
Oh goodness, I don't know what the hell is going on now. I can't hear it. This is the first time I do that.
You can hear
us?
us?
Through StreamYard. Are you playing it through StreamYard?
No.
Well, that's why. You got to play it through StreamYard. Play it as
Why
a
do I
tab
need
through
to play it through
StreamYard.
StreamYard? I never play anything through StreamYard.
Okay. Normally you just use the other tab and you say, capture audio and away it goes.
And Opera is set to go to full volume. I don't understand this. Okay, then I can't participate. Then I can't hear anything. You just go for it.
Right? Yes. Okay,
No,
Alex. And
I mean, if you pop the thing in, I can run it from this end. So if you give me the link, just pop the link into the private chat there. I can run it from this end, and that might be easier, and then you can listen.
This is so weird. Never had that before. Or take one of the other ones. Take a short one, because we're running out of time, Rob, because this is going to take like 2 hours to do. Take another one. Take a short one. I don't know what the hell happened here.
All right. Okay, I'll take this one then.
This is so weird.
Just put it on 2 times speed, huh? Just whatever you do, put it on 2 times speed.
No, not 125 is good enough.
Okay, so let me share screen here. Chrome tab, share audio. Here we go.
No, I don't know. These Chrome things are weird, really. I don't know why they have to mess with
Okay, let's see if you guys can hear this.
settings.
Let me know if you can hear this, please.
Yes.
You were just passing, my friend, and we haven't had a conversation, have we?
No.
Just while we were setting up the camera because you agreed to be filmed. And can I ask a question, my friend? You said, as you were passing, you said you're a Catholic, is that right?
I'm a Catholic, yeah. I was brought up a Catholic, yeah.
You said you're a Catholic, okay. And you're born and bred in this area?
I was born in Ireland, but I came here when I was about 3 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you came from Ireland to Britain when you were 3 years of age, okay. What I'd like to ask you is that, so there's a protest march going on here about something. What I'd ask you, Pat, you said your name is Patrick, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, Patrick. And I just got that name while we were setting up the camera, because people might think, how did I know that beforehand? It's only setting up. We haven't had a conversation.
He's really
that's
making
fine.
a point. He's really making a point of like trying to emphasize this is not being a setup. Yet everything about it looks a setup.
The other thing he's doing, of course, is getting to know Patrick. It's all the icebreaker. It's all to bring the guard down. Hey, we're just having a friendly chat as well. So this is part of the Dawah thing. You'll see they always ask your name, a little bit about you, so that you can become more friendly and you're more open to accepting a message. It's a psychological technique. Nothing wrong with it per se if it's used in an honest way, but that's obviously part of what's happening here as well.
Yeah, 'cause, like, Patrick's got that look on his face, like, Jesus Christ. That poor man.
Okay, that's very kind of you, Patrick. Okay, Patrick. And the question I'd like to ask you, Patrick, is, and this is I asked you while we were setting up, do you believe Jesus is God, or do you believe Jesus was somebody sent by God? Because you're a Catholic, you said.
Even though I'm a Catholic, I don't believe in everything that's written. I believe in, I actually like the way that to me, I think he's just a prophet, like a messenger from God. Like a lot of all the other prophets.
Okay, that was a dead giveaway.
No, but the thing is, what the Dawah guy is doing, he's already trying to set the narrative up, and this is a very sneaky, slimy, contemptible way of steering the control of the conversation. This is why interfaith dialogue does not work with Muslims, because what they do is they reduce everything down to their level. So you say he's the son of God. Well, we say he's a prophet. Shall we just call him prophet for this discussion? So everything about the other person's faith is now going to be compromised. But what the Muslim's not going to do, he's not going to compromise anything about what he believes. He will not say, okay, then let's just agree that Jesus is the son of God. They're not going to do that. So everything about what he's going to do now, the direction it's going to go in, it's all set up to break down what the Catholic believes. And basically, it'll also expose that the guy he's speaking to is kind of weak-minded or doesn't have that much in the way of knowledge of what he's supposed to believe as well. So it's a kind of bit of a technique going on there. I'm going to work out this guy, what he knows about his faith, and is a psychological trick. Am I going to get him to give in and compromise on what he believes by acquiescing and yielding to how I'm going to control this dialogue?
It's before them, and that's why I believe. I don't believe he's a god. He's a god.
So you say you're a Catholic, but you like...
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure how many Christians can claim that Jesus isn't the Son of God and still be Christian. Actually, I have heard of one he's very confused though, but I've heard one on Discord. But I don't think any genuine Christian, as far as I know, could deny the I suppose some version of Christ being like godly or part of the Godhead or something and still be Christian. I don't know. Maybe there is, but it sounds a bit odd to me.
But the narrative, this is the point about letting the scripture define what the faith is and not what the people are. The people don't define the faith, the scripture does. So in this sense, what you just said there, Robs, is absolutely bang on point. When you go to scripture, you cannot take the fact that the claim of Jesus being the Son of God away from the Bible. That's part of the narrative. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Do you like to believe that Jesus, peace be upon him, is a prophet of God, a messenger of God?
Yeah, that's what I've always believed. Yeah, I've always felt like that. I just think the message has got lost in the Bible somewhere. That's what I think, you know.
So you believe he's a prophet or messenger of God, but the message got lost somewhere. Okay.
Yeah,
There you go. Look,
okay.
there you go.
Catholics think.
He's setting it up. He's setting up the corruption of the Bible. The message has been polluted and blah, blah, blah. And the Catholic is giving him all the ammunition. This is a setup. There's nothing genuine about this. Either the guy is a bona fide, stupidly perverse, hopefully ignorant Catholic, if he's genuine, or it's a setup. There is no third option in this discussion.
Yeah, he doesn't sound like any Catholic I had ever heard of. It's like he's saying things as though it's like he's not really sure if he believes. He's on the fence between atheists and his religion.
Well, I think he's just a regular guy living in the UK. He's a byproduct of his society. He's obviously secular. He's not a practicing Catholic. He hasn't really done any practicing of Catholicism, but this is, atypical of the demographics of the UK. In
He's come
particular,
from smart cat. He came from Ireland. You cannot come from Ireland as an Irish person and not know something about Jesus being the Son of God. I find that very hard to believe.
No,
Catholic.
He's a Catholic from Ireland, and he came to the UK at the age of 3. That's what I got. So he grew up in the UK for the majority of his life, and I'm just saying he is more than anything a byproduct of his community and his society. And in the UK, religiosity of any stripe has been on the decline. So he's more of a secular-minded individual. That's what he strikes me off. He's a guy that likes to drink beers and watch the local football game, and not really follow anything of any substantial things. He's a regular bloke, so that's what he is. But he's part of he's a part of his community. That's part and parcel of the UK experience, probably.
I think he's God. That's just what I think. Yeah.
Okay, that's brilliant. Okay, fine. I'd like to ask you, Patrick, do you accept Muhammad as a messenger of God also?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Come on. There's no way the guy's a fucking Catholic and he's saying that.
There you go.
These are two separate things.
Okay. I think this is too obvious, I think.
This guy
he probably, if you asked him if he accepts Buddha as a messenger, he probably would agree. He's like, yeah, he's probably a messenger as well.
No.
He's on the fence.
No, because those things fly in direct contradiction to what the fucking Bible says.
You accept that? Literally, I stopped you about 2-3 minutes ago, and you said you're a Catholic, but now you're saying that Muhammad is a messenger of God, peace be upon him?
Yeah, peace be upon him. I've read his life story, like from the age of 40 onwards, all about him and that, and what a good person he was and all that, and I believe he's a messenger.
Oh, come on.
I wonder how much he's actually read and not read. And look, when I was young, I thought the same, right? I mean, I obviously want to go and give my younger self, ignorant self, a slap, right? But there was a time in the mid 1980s when Salman Rushdie had a death, the death, what do you call it, the fatwa against him. I thought, well, that serves him. This is me, like when I was youngster, right? So we can all be like ignoramuses, and I still am, I guess, to some degree, and certainly I was then. Hey, that serves him right for speaking against God. That was and I knew absolutely nothing about Islam, all that I heard that Islam was a bit like Christianity. And so, that's the sort of the thing that I thought back then. So, I mean, this guy's obviously like a cafeteria Christian, as we might, or Hitchens would have said, right? He's Christian in name, doesn't know much about the Bible or much else by the sounds of it. Yeah. And so it's sort of low-hanging fruit, isn't it? Now, if this guy were to speak to Thunderous, well, I mean, I'm not sure that they could have a clear, a non-emotional dialogue, but he would be up against somebody that knows a lot more about the Bible and wouldn't be accepting these sort of claims.
He'd be up against the wall.
And it's kind of disingenuous because, I mean, if you're going to use one tag, none of this would work against even a moderately knowledgeable atheist. It would all be absolutely pointless. So he's not doing anything.
Or a Christian that knows a lot, right?
No, but even so, if you're trying to
Then
prove
you're a Muslim, my friend.
if you're trying to prove your case in his position, the argument should work. Doesn't matter who it is, right?
Yeah, it should, as long as you know your theology, I guess, if you're that way inclined.
Well, exactly, but nothing he's saying would work remotely close with an atheist who's moderately has any kind of critical thinking.
I don't know what I am, mate.
You're really a Muslim. If you say that there is one God and this God alone should be worshipped, this God is almighty, all powerful, all seeing, all hearing. He has no beginning, he has no end. He is so powerful, God says in the Quran, nothing in the heavens or on the earth is hidden from him. Anywhere. There's nothing whatsoever that is hidden from him. That's absolutely amazing. You agree with that?
I believe all that.
You agree this God is not a man or a woman. He has no beginning, he has no end.
Power, isn't it?
He's absolutely incredible power.
The universe was created. Everything in the universe is created by him.
That's right. Everything in the universe and beyond the universe.
Well, that's debatable, but obviously these guys both agree with that. So that's halfway down the halfway down the pitch, so to speak. It's now this guy trying to convince this supposed Catholic that he's just got the wrong version of a God, right? He's actually a Muslim, and all this time he's been, hoodwinked himself into believing he was a Catholic.
Yeah, because he flat out said it earlier. So, yeah, you're a Muslim. And it's like, just immediately hurry up and jump into the next thing. I'm like, really?
Yeah, all the planets in the distance, the ones we don't know about. That's right. It's all there, created by him.
By him, you agree with that concept of God, okay? Okay, but that's a Muslim view of God. And he doesn't need to sleep and he doesn't need to rest.
No.
And however, Christianity says God created the heavens.
See, do you notice how he put that in? He does not need to sleep. He does not need to rest. Because this is a play on words in the book of Genesis where it says God rested on the seventh day. Right? Mm-hmm. God he wasn't tired. He didn't need to have a kip. It's a Jewish idiom. Okay, meaning he desisted from a certain piece of work and concentrated on something else. This is what I was saying earlier on, undermining and taking control of the conversation by using these kind of. That was quite irrelevant in the conversation. There was no need to say he doesn't need to take a rest, he doesn't get tired. That had nothing to do with the flow of direction of the conversation. He's thrown that in to undermine him.
And it's also a dig, I guess, against the particular the human nature of Christ, right? Because obviously they don't accept the dual nature view. So that's probably a dig at that as well.
Of course.
Heavens and the earth in 6 days and rested on the seventh day. The Quran says that God doesn't need to rest and no weariness touched him after he'd created everything. Makes sense, more sense, yeah?
Yeah, it does make more sense.
Really, you are actually a Muslim, my friend, okay? So I would suggest, Patrick, that you say two sentences to confirm you're a Muslim. I know it's not a long conversation we've had. It's only about 2 or 3 minutes. And these are two sentences. First sentence, Patrick.
He's certainly not shy about getting to it like instantaneously, isn't it? Get to the shahada as quick as possible. You're actually a Muslim. Just confirm you're a Muslim, and then I can go on my way, because that gives me points, right? You may or may not be aware, Cloud, that Muslims get points if they do what they consider good deeds.
2,600.
There you go. I can't remember the exact amount. There you go. Stops knows the numbers. I'm not sure if Smart Cat agrees with that, but yeah.
I bear witness that there is nothing worthy of worship except Almighty God. In Arabic, or his proper name we believe is Allah. There is nothing worthy of worship except Allah. Okay, 1 second. And the second sentence, you're already saying it. The second sentence, Patrick, is that, and I bear witness, that means, and I'm sure that Muhammad, peace be upon him, is his servant and his messenger. If you say these two sentences, which are really, you're not changing your beliefs, although you said you're Catholic, you're just confirming what you believed in anyway, and you'd actually be a Muslim. What does that mean?
Yeah, hang on.
It means
if you change your mind, you're going to get
according
killed.
to Islam.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if he changes his mind, he's going to get killed. That's what it means.
Yeah, but he just said it won't change his belief. But fundamentally, Catholicism and Islam are two different things. So it does change it. He's being completely dishonest and disingenuous.
But whose fault is that?
You are ultimately.
Sorry, you said something smart, kid.
Whose fault is that, ultimately?
What do you mean?
His ignorance is his own fault.
No, I'm saying
No.
your guy, the guy preaching to him is being disingenuous because he immediately stated, no, the two beliefs aren't that different, but they are. That's a lie. Your guy is lying to him.
He's trying to help him recognize that he was never really a Catholic and he was secretly a Muslim.
He didn't need to. He didn't need to affirm this. Right at the beginning of the video, the guy flat out, he was like, yeah, okay, maybe. That was obvious to everybody. Even a Muslim.
Ultimately promised to go into paradise. The reason being that any Muslim will eventually go into paradise. We are answerable for our sins, obviously. However, ultimately, all Muslims will go into paradise. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said. So what I'm saying is that if you see these two sentences, although you say you're a Catholic, really...
He said that ultimately all Muslims will go into paradise. Did you clock that? Why he said ultimately? He was basically saying because some will go to hell first before they go to paradise. He omitted that part of it, but said all will ultimately go to hell. Surely, if you're going to preach and say that the heavenly abode is the destination, you'll say, well, when Muslims die, they go to heaven. Simple as. You don't say ultimately go to heaven unless there's something that you're omitting in the sentence.
Yeah, the guy should have asked him, well, if they ultimately going there, where are they going before they ultimately get there? Because they're not going to live for, they've only got a short life. So after they die, what happens to them before they go to heaven?
Good catch.
What your beliefs are Muslim beliefs, and you'd be a Muslim. Are you happy to say the two sentences?
Yeah.
Then you'd be a Muslim, Patrick. Is that okay?
Yeah, quite happy.
Although I stopped you only literally 3.
See, I mean, bless him. Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah. This is obviously, and it's just a person. Where there's just no critical thinking. What more is there to this? Is there any books? What do I need to read? If he's read the Quran, does he understand it? I mean, before you take that step, that's a life-altering position to take. Surely you should do quite a bit of homework on that, so that you've got good reasons, at least in your own mind, for believing it. But here you meet somebody on the street and you have a 10-minute conversation, well, 4 minutes at this stage, let's say. Yeah. And you're ready to accept Islam. I mean, but again, maybe it's like, well, if you accept that you should be buying Nikes instead of Adidas, Patrick, are you happy to buy Nikes? Yeah, cool, no problem. It's like, it seems to him like a trivial thing. And this guy on the left is not prepared to go through and say, hey, do you know what this is going to be? Maybe he does. I haven't watched the video, but let's see whether he goes, this will change your life. You've got to do all these other things, blah, 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 blah. And just realize life is a test. It's going to be much harder than you were before. Hey, Patrick, are you still? And by the way, first go read the Quran and understand it. Come back to me, Patrick. And then if you're still interested, we can do the shahada. That seems like an honest way to do it, right? Tell him up front what's going to happen.
I think there's several problems here, because the number one thing is that you have the people who are being dishonest, who go and try and sell, because this is a sales approach for me, to sell Islam to somebody else. And number two is that the Islamic texts, the entire concept, provides you with the ammunition to do so. So the problem is that the dishonest tactic being used here is supported in Islam. To get people into the fold, to get people to join the group, no matter what, even if you need to lie about it, even if you need to say, well, you're not really changing your beliefs, when in fact you are. I mean, it's quite substantial, and he does not give him the caveats. He does not give him any of the conditions. He does not give him anything. And this is supported by Islam. Islam does not say you have to, like what a good government would do, is say before you sign a contract, number one, you have to have a 14-day return clause. You have to first give him a fine print. You have to explain the terms and conditions. This is what it should say, but it does not do that. It just says, listen, as soon as you give the shahada, poof, you're part of it. And then in for a pound and so on. That's it.
The interest, your sister's a Jehovah's Witness, right? Have you ever asked her how hard it is to get in when they do the proselytizing, the process of actually getting someone to the point of being a baptized Jehovah's Witness? Have you ever asked her how difficult that is?
Yes, It's
not
a multi-step process. You first
Yeah.
need to go and learn a couple of things. You need to go for a couple of tests. You need to have some sessions with one of the elders or whatever you call these people, and only then are you even accepted into this whole thing, to show that you are actually sincere and that you are interested in this and not just a con.
Yeah, to summarize it, you have to go through a book called "What Does the Bible Really Teach?" That can take up to about 6 months. Then the meetings, then you become an unbaptized publisher, as they call it, and then you have to go through a list of questions. I think there's something about 150 questions you have to go through just to make sure you understand what the core Bible teachings are before you actually qualify to become a Jehovah's Witness. So it's actually quite a difficult process to become one. Yet Islam, this is just contemptible. It's showing contempt, not just to the Muslims who are listening, watching this. This is how easy it is, but it's kind of showing contempt that how can I put this? It's showing contempt for. I've lost my train of thought. I'll leave it there. This is despicable. This is despicable.
3 or 4 minutes ago, okay, the 2 sentences. I bear witness
I bear witness.
that there is nothing worthy of worship except Allah.
Nothing worthy of worship except Allah.
And I bear witness
And I bear witness
that Muhammad, peace be upon him,
that Muhammad, peace be upon him,
is his servant and his messenger.
is his servant and his messenger.
Okay, and you say it in Arabic also. It's exactly the same words, not different. You say, Ashhadu
Ashhadu
an
an
la ilaha
la ilaha
illallah
illallah
wa
wa
ashhadu
anna
anna Muhammadan
Muhammadan
abduhu
abduhu
wa
wa
rasuluhu.
rasuluhu.
Congratulations, Patrick. You're actually a Muslim now.
But can you also see what's happening here? But it's not only that he's doing that, right? But it's also a view of follow what I say, do what I do, right? That's kind of part of it's like the beginning of a conditioning process, isn't it? Don't think about this for yourself. Do what I tell you, follow along. Right? That's how it starts, isn't it? If you look at any cults, that's how it starts, very softly like this. Just say these sort of things. Just it's what's called a yes set or a compliance mode. And as people, and you just slowly ratchet that up. And people want to stay consistent with what they did in the beginning. So if you get small yeses and compliance in the beginning and you slowly ratchet, as long as you don't go too fast, too quickly, then people will follow along. And if they look back over time, they'd wonder how they got to that stage, but it's slow compliance over time.
That's called
I hope
brainwashing.
this wasn't St. Patrick's Day for him. I hope it wasn't St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's interesting because he turned otherwise a very important process. In order to say La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah, there has to be some substantial, profound experience for somebody. At the end of the day, he's saying, I bear witness of these 2 points, right? So instead of it being like a spiritual awakening for the individual, the person coming into Islam, he turned it into a bureaucratic.
Turned it
into a bureaucratic, technical.
It's a formality. Yeah, it's a good point.
So this is how I know I'm right and they're wrong, because this is the type of things that I've been criticizing within my own community for years. These types of da'wah people are not sincere. They're turning something otherwise very important into something extremely trivial and technical. Just say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Just say La ilaha illallah. There, I got a Muslim. You raise a very, very good point there, because that was what my train of thought was. Muhammad Rasulullah, that I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger, and that's what led me on from the how Jehovah's Witnesses do things. You have to sort of like really understand what you're getting involved in. Whereas you're bearing testimony. No, that's the point. That's the point. He's saying, you become a Muslim by saying this, yet you know nothing about Muhammad. How can you testify about somebody you know nothing about? It's a false testimony at this point.
Yeah, of course, because when you go into a court of law, when you go into court and you're bearing witness as a testimony about a certain character, you have to know something about the person that you're bearing witness against. You see,
No,
your faith in a God is a judicial process, and if you're going to bear witness, you have to have some kind of character.
Process. I wish it was a judicial process. It's less than. It's it's like a freelance bureaucrat certifying that you've become a Muslim. Like it's the person has no legitimacy in doing that, and the person taking the testimony in this manner is essentially bearing false witness because he has no idea what he's talking about. It's evident, and this is shameful. This is shameful. I appreciate when Muslims go out and they try to engage in sincere da'wah, but this is show and tell for the camera, for very low intellectual people, very, very stupid people to see any use to this, any utilitarian purpose to this. It's like Rob said, it's like I'm putting a gold star under my name type of thing. It's so, it's sickening actually for me to watch this. And if I was doing what he was doing, after talking to Patrick for a couple of minutes, I would have told him, listen, buddy, this is not fair. Go read more about Catholicism, learn about your religion, so we have at least a starting point, because it seems like your brain is empty, and anything I can put in there, you're going to say yes to. So I could have said, I bear witness to the flying spaghetti monster. He would have said, I bear witness to the flying spaghetti monster. It's this guy.
No, exactly. It's
on autopilot. This guy's on autopilot, and I swear to God, after this whole thing is done, it looks like Patrick is like, "Hey, mate, you want to go get a beer?" Right after.
That's another point. How long is he going to? There is no follow-up. I mean, the thing is, it's like giving somebody a driver's license and then letting you loose when the guy has no clue how to drive a car or what a car is. And then if he, goes around the corner, throws away the driver's license and never sits in a car again in all his life, how are you going to check this? What is the point of all this? What is the point of getting somebody to say the shahada, and if you bump into him a month later in the pub drinking beer, having a bacon sandwich, what is the point? You don't know anything about this. So this whole process of having a shahada, and here I need to agree with Thunder that the process that Jehovah's Witnesses do, that they actually take you in, is a very, very much more profound way of doing it than what the Muslims are doing.
Yeah, but this isn't just necessarily to recruit, right? This is just to say, oh, look, we have something, video, we got you. That's all this is. This is just a notch under the belt, and it's completely dishonest.
But it's the end of the process. This is the problem.
But it's a notch. They win.
If somebody showed me this video and told me this is a satire, I would have believed them.
Yeah.
His technique is very much of what has happened with the Catholic Church when they went into Africa. They were known as rice missionaries because they went in there to persuade the African tribes to become Catholic, but they bribed them with food. So it's very similar to that. You can still do your African practices and your witch doctrine and such things like that, because African tribes still do that, even though they claim to be Christian. And we know that happens in this country because there's a sect of an organization within the police force now that trace African voodoo practices from so-called Christian organizations that come from Africa since the torso in the Thames, which was where they found a sacrificed boy and the body of a boy in the Thames.
Wow.
So, it's a very where. So what I'm seeing here is that you can claim yourself Muslim, but you can still carry on doing what you're doing. Very much what the rice missionaries were doing in Africa.
Now.
It's all right. I don't mind.
You're happy with that?
Yeah, I'm not fussy. Yeah, I'm quite happy. That's what I am.
Yeah, that's what you are. That's what your beliefs are. It's not about labels. You see, people say, well, I'm actually a Christian. I say to them, look.
Hang on. This is what you are. This is what you believe. By the way, it's not about labels. So what does it matter? What is the point of this if it's not about labels?
Yeah, and of course he was very blasé about it anyway. Yeah, whatever type of thing. It's like I've chosen a different color. Red was my favorite. Now it's green. Whatever. And instead of the Muslim, if he was an honest guy saying, hey, as Smart Cat pointed out, right, this is a huge life decision. Here's all the things that are going to happen. Actually, before you take the Shahada, here's what I think you need to study and so forth. Then come back to me, right? And we'll go whatever further. That would have been at least giving him the opportunity. And even better, hey, go and speak to some ardent critics. Let them give you a different perspective, right? When one of the guys I spoke to over a period of 6 months eventually deconverted, I said to him, go speak to everybody, right? He was friends with Hamza and Sabur and other people, and he used to tell me, yeah, I've spoken to them. They said I shouldn't come and speak to you. And I said to him, well, I say you should go speak to them and me and make your own decision. That should tell you a lot about, the sincerity, right? I think more of you than they do, clearly, because I want you to use your brain. They think you're going to be, quote unquote, taken off the path, when in fact I'm going to give you a different view that gives you the opportunity to, look at two different perspectives.
Say I'm a Catholic, or I'm Jewish, or I'm...
Sorry, you wanted to say something? Oh, I thought I heard Smart Cat. Okay,
God
no worries.
guides those
Some
who
other
he
religion.
chooses, and he misguides.
Yeah.
He's disgusted.
No free will there, hey? No free will there, yeah. Let's leave that one for another time.
Misguides who he chooses. So they have nothing to worry about.
Exactly. Yeah, we're all puppets on a string.
religion. I
Most
said,
Christians are closer to Islam than they realise.
that's right, absolutely correct.
Don't you be saying that to Thunderous, please.
Because if you follow Christianity properly, you're very close to Islam.
If you follow...
You could not be. What on earth is this guy?
This is crazy. That's a good quote.
Thunderous, do you now accept the Prophet Muhammad? You heard it.
Can I swear?
Yes.
Yeah, go on then.
appropriate.
This is just ridiculous.
And I promised Thunderous we hadn't watched this. We hadn't watched this ahead of time.
Neither did I, but it is so predictable. I mean, with the greatest respect,
No,
you can
that
see
was.
where it goes
I
right
didn't
from the
see that
start.
coming. I did not see that coming. Really, I didn't.
Christianity, you wouldn't be a Muslim. However, if you follow Jesus in the Bible, you'd be a Muslim. You can't be anything else. This is the point. If you follow Jesus, look, Jesus had a beard. According to the Bible, he prayed.
Hey, he had 10 toes, he had 10 fingers, 2 eyes. Look.
Oh my god! Right. This is where I said earlier on. He'll break Jesus down, the character, and he'll mention when Jesus was in Gethsemane, he was praying on his knees. I guarantee he'll say that. I'll
he
put
had a beard.
£100 on it. He had. No, I'll get £100 now. I'll put it up with anyone. He'll say Jesus prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane on his knees. Who prays like that? Muslims. And that could be so easily torn apart, because when Jesus resurrected Lazarus, Jesus was standing up. When Jesus made a covenant for the kingdom with the disciples, he had a glass of wine in his hand and he was lying down. So how could he be a prayer? Do Muslims pray with a glass of wine in their hands? Do Muslims pray standing up?
I tell you what,
see what I mean?
just as a matter of interest, Thunderous, I heard a Muslim on that Discord server that we popped into make the claim that wine is not alcohol.
That's why it's called. I had
knows?
that argument already. That's
Can
why
you
it's
say
called
that
wine.
again?
That's why it's
What's
called wine, because grape juice is grape juice. Wine is when the sugar ferments into alcohol. That's why it's called wine.
Correct, yeah.
And
All right,
yes, we
let's
do
carry
know
on.
what Jesus looks like. I've got a Bible with lots of pictures of him.
Prayed by putting his head on the
He
ground.
used to pray like that, didn't he?
Oh, they see what I
Okay,
mean?
you just said it.
Okay, you get 100. Thank God.
You owe me £100.
He used to be on the floor and all that. That's exactly right.
I normally tell people this, but you're telling. That's right, you're confirming. That's right.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
Mary, the mother of Jesus, you see the ladies here walking around with a hijab on. How did Mary used to dress?
It's the same with Catholic nuns. They dress the same. They all cover up.
They don't cover their hair completely, but Mary used to cover her hair completely.
And we know this because...
No, there's no
know that?
scripture in there. Nowhere in the Bible does it say how Mary dressed.
And they've got to take history, and maybe they're trying to, but again, you wouldn't know this unless you had direct evidence of that. So, but hey, he's on a roll here. So if you've already made these mistakes that Jesus, had 10 fingers, 10 toes, that's not what he said, but I'm paraphrasing because some of the other stuff is trivially true of human beings. You might as well just keep going, right?
And did you know Mary had hair?
Catholics are meant to keep
Well, we presume she did, huh? Yeah.
How do you know?
themselves well covered. We weren't meant to drink either. We were meant to do many things.
Jesus
that
turned water
happens in
into
Islam
wine,
today.
you muppet. His first miracle was to turn water into wine. Noah, when he got off the ark, he made some special homebrew. He got drunk. It makes it clear. Ecclesiastes says that I'm talking about it's good for men to eat and indeed drink. For crying out loud, there's tons of scriptures talk about alcohol.
Hey, we're meant to live a moral life as well.
That's right.
Originally,
Seriously.
the original Catholics, that's the proper, but people don't follow it properly. That's the
So
trouble.
now, as a Muslim, you've become a true follower of Jesus, peace be upon him. Literally in about 5 minutes. So as you said, most Christians don't realize what they believe in is closer to Islam than Catholicism.
Yeah, they don't realise.
Just look at his face. It's like, really? He's just so enamored, but because this guy he's not disagreeing at all. It's like having somebody who's completely hypnotized. It's fun to just make claims, and the other guy just agree with you without ever asking you to justify them. It must be like Christmas, for this guy.
Thunder, I can feel the pulse.
What was that? Sorry.
Thunder, I can feel the pulse of rage building.
No, to be honest, I see myself. Sometimes I wish when I'm in London, I can come across a guy like this, right? I'm thinking that would be a lunge punch to the solar plexus, and I'll grab him by his throat, and I'll use the blade of my foot behind his knee, right? And I'll smack his head against, right? Because this is contempt. What
would Jesus do?
Well, I've never declared myself Christian. That's an assumption that Stops and Rubs have come to, right? So I've always said I uphold the biblical narrative. That's what I've never said I'm a Christian. I uphold the biblical narrative, and I'm a theist.
You said you're a creationist.
Yes, a theist, a creationist. Yes, absolutely. Yes. I've said I'm an intelligent designist. So, but that it doesn't matter what I claim. The fact of the matter is, right? That's what I'm thinking. This to me it's a mockery to people who have faith, but it's a mockery in the way that he undermines other people who don't know that much about their faith in order to hoodwink them like this, and it's deceitful. All of this has been deceit. That's where my righteous indignation comes from, and I think you probably recognise that, Cloud. I see. Yeah, go on, move on.
Yeah, because half the Bible, Muslims follow half of the Bible anyway.
No, they don't. They say it's corrupted. It's corrupted. For Christ, they don't follow the Bible, you muppet. The only time they ever follow the Bible is when they keep quoting Deuteronomy 18:18. They'll go to the Song of Solomon, which is interesting because it's not canon, but they'll use the phonic fallacy. Then they'll go to the book of Isaiah, which is interesting because it's not canon, because it talks about people that can't read or write, but they refer it to Muslims. Then they go to the John 14:16 and says that Jesus said, "I'll send you a helper." Right, but every other time the Bible is corrupted unless it says something that fits in on with the Quranic narrative. They do the same thing with other holy books as well. Total bollocks. Carry on.
Follow what Jesus says in the Bible, not the things that St. Paul.
Sorry, that's not entirely true. That's not entirely true. We may not follow the letter of the Bible, but we sure follow the spirit of the Bible. You cannot deny that.
Well, I can deny it, blatantly deny it. You don't follow any of the Bible. If the spirit of the Bible is something you follow, then why is it that you deny Jesus is the Son of God?
How can the Word of God die?
I said the Son of God. I didn't say he was God.
What does Tylenol do for you? And Benny,
how can the Word of God made into flesh die on the cross?
It's not automatic, Benny, that Smartcat comes. You cannot influence him, sorry.
Put in it. It's all the man.
I didn't want to say that, but you said it.
Yeah, there's a lot of rubbish man put in the Bible that doesn't make sense. That's right. The original Bible, when you read it properly, from all about Jesus and all that, that's the proper Bible.
Absolutely fantastic. Patrick, congratulations. Can I give you a hug? I know it's not a very English way of doing things.
Don't mind, we're brothers, aren't we?
We're brothers. Alhamdulillah, we're brothers. That's right. Congratulations. Alhamdulillah, we're brothers now. That's true. Exactly what the Quran says. We're brothers now. Alhamdulillah. Allah says in the Quran that the believers are nothing but brothers and sisters, of course, brothers in a general term. So brothers and sisters, we're all brothers and sisters, alhamdulillah. I'll give you a hug. Congratulations, you're a Muslim. It's a big thing.
Welcome to the fold, right? Congratulate somebody when they've made a good decision, make them feel good. You don't want buyer's remorse. This is all like sales tactics, right?
Yeah, love bombing, I think it's called.
That's absolutely fantastic.
Get all the other guys to do it as well, because now you're part of a family, right? The fact that you haven't thought critically is irrelevant. You're now part of a family. Look at all these other people. It gives you that sense of being part of a community, and the emotion and the psychology overwhelms the rational critical faculties at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite good in that sense for those
doesn't
people
even
who
got
are not thinking straight. Sorry, say again. What you
So
say,
he doesn't
Smart
even
Cat?
got that. He said he doesn't even got that. There's only one guy. He hugs and kisses with brothers now, and he'll never see him again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another guy in the background there that's filming, so I don't know. Let's just see if they say any more here. Let's just speed it up 1.2 times here and see if anything else happens. There we go.
Benny,
Another
bro,
young-
you are not a real Muslim.
There's another one.
No other
Hey, look,
Muslim will take you serious. Why are you representing Islam? You're doing it badly.
Like, this whole thing is just classical love bombing that you're typically going to see in like major cults.
But you see, there's a few people there, contrary to Smart Cat's view, there's a few people there, then give you something else to go away with so you can continue your journey. Don't leave you there to think about these things. Reinforce it with additional things. In sales and marketing, they call it like hidden bonuses, right? You buy into something and, you're just about to take it, or you just have, hey, and because you were one of the first to get it, you get this, this, and this. And that reinforces it, right? And then very next day you get emails saying, hey, congratulations for doing X, Y, and Z. We'd love to have you on the journey to keep you there, because buyer's remorse kicks in very quickly, right? So,
I thought I was the only one to say this. Yeah, because this is so true.
so that brings us to
Okay.
10 o'clock, and that was only an 8-minute video, right? So,
22, wasn't
we
it?
do longer ones as well. So again, we'll invite Cloud and, Thunderous or Smart Cat want to join, because what we will be
This is
doing
so
is
funny.
reviewing some longer streams over a period of time.
Thank you for that video. I enjoyed it.
That was painful.
Oh, boy.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
man,
the sort. I mean, that's very straightforward. And sorry, Smart Cat, you were speaking. Go ahead.
I mean, I just seen that comment. Stops. Thank you for putting up that comment. I don't know nothing about that individual, but I find it interesting. He's quick to denounce me. It's
Yes.
evident to me and everybody that's watching this that this so-called Benny guy is not using his brain. If he was using his brain, he would see for it what it is. But he's obviously not using his brain. And I apologize to the audience. He does not represent all Muslims. He's a shameful representation of Muslims. Most Muslims have used their brains, and they see it for what it is. This guy's just a despicable individual for trying
Well, we've
to
had him
call
on the
me
show.
a
So,
non-Muslim.
Smart Cat, just so you know, we had him on the show 3 or 4 times, and eventually we said, because people in the chats were saying, no, this can't be. You guys are going for the low-hanging fruit. This guy isn't really a Muslim, or he's clueless, or he's irrational, or whatever. You guys pick on weak people, right? And there was just no substance there at all. So eventually we had to ask him not to come back again. But he's been on 3 or 4 times. I mean, he can come onto our Discord server. If you haven't heard him, you'll hear him. He sort of goes all over the show anyway. And so that was what happened in the past. That's why we've had experience. It's not like we don't know who this is.
And the same thing, the funny thing is Maverick is still on about. I mean, I don't understand. For him, it seems to be important that the inheritance error is not an error. So if he can somehow work out inheritance, then the Quran is correct, therefore his God is correct, and therefore Islam is correct, and therefore we should all be Muslims because inheritance is working out for him. This seems to be his only task in life at the moment, only to go after the inheritance error. It's so weird for me, really. It's so strange.
Well, I mean, it's such a
The same as
knockdown
this
error,
Benny
though.
guy is there to tell everybody you're not allowed to talk about Islam if you don't follow his reasoning, his line of thinking, and that is it. That's so strange.
I think why he's doing it so much, though, Maverick,
It's not
right?
my
is because-
granny. This is my mother. I'm sorry, guys. I told who was it, Jordan M, that I was going to have the rest of the month with my mother as an avatar because I have free speech and he is free to look at my mother. There is nothing wrong with me putting my mother as an avatar because we are living in a free country. He challenged me to do that. Well, I am following the challenge. There she is in all her glory and beauty. This is Mummy.
Daddy?
No,
That's very
Mummy.
strange. That's very strange, man. Did somebody really challenge you to put a picture of your mother? What was
Yes.
that supposed to prove?
Well, this is exactly it. Ask him. He's a Muslim.
Challenge accepted, I guess.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Is he trying to sexualize your mother?
Yeah, I don't know.
No, the idea was that we were critiquing people who thought Muhammad was closer to, they love Muhammad more than their parents, and so therefore they took offence if somebody said something mean. And so the idea that Jordan put forward is, well, hey, would stops be okay if I said something mean about your mom? Not that I would, but or I drew a picture of or whatever. So the comparison that some Muslims make is between Muhammad and our parents, because we obviously don't value somebody who's dead.
Guys.
And so that was the idea of doing that.
I'm not going to say anything about myself, but, let's just say I have street smarts. All right? That's somebody socially blackmailing you, socially intimidating you. When they say something about this will make me mad, doesn't matter. Put X, Y, and Z in it. This is street talk. This is not real talk. It's street talk. This is the mentality of some people I dealt with in my life, and this is thuggery, masquerading as don't insult my parents or don't insult my ideology. You'll make me very upset. This is a threat, right? And it's a shame that Muslims do not recognize those who are advocating. Look, when somebody comes up to you and tells you if you love God and His Messenger, you're going to be upset if somebody says this, this is blackmailing you. He's saying that you're not a real Muslim if you don't act infuriated. You know what I'm trying to say? So all the Muslims
emotional
in the chat,
blackmailing.
Emotional blackmailing. So all the Muslims in the chat, if there's a bearded man that's telling you to get emotionally charged up, this bearded man is not a person of guidance. He's a con artist. Okay?
Okay, before we get, let's leave it at that. I think we have done enough today to educate people on Islam, different aspects, very different things. We've touched on the Quran. We've looked at how shahada is taken in the Dawah action, how this can work and how not to do it, because it looks really ridiculous. And what did you type there? Is that your telephone number or what?
No, Cloud was asking if we can put his ID in there, so I've put the ID so that James SC can pick him up on Discord.
Oh, okay. If you want to come and join us later on the Discord channel, Discord server, come on in. We're going to discuss this. It's not recorded from our side, so if anybody is shy and wants to discuss Islam, then go ahead. What is happening here is being recorded and will be published on YouTube and Facebook. What we do on Discord is private, and I don't think that anybody is recording this secretly. I hope not. We close the show, as always, with thanking the panelists and the
Hadith
chat,
or no Hadith?
and by narrating the Hadith, which today is by Jabir bin Abdullah, which is from Bukhari, volume 762. Oh, hang on. I've actually got it here. What am I doing? I'm fast asleep here. Ding, 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 ding. I don't want to sound as though I'm making this up. When I got married, Allah's Messenger said to me, "What type of lady have you married?" I replied, "I have married a matron." He said, "Huh? Why don't you have a liking for the virgins and for fondling them?" Jabir also said, Allah's Messenger said, "Why don't you marry a young girl so that you might play with her and she with you?"
Tabarnak.
Yeah, there we go. All right, guys. I guess
Very
just
romantic.
leaves us to
Very romantic.
thank our guests, Smart Cat and Cloud, and
Thank you for having
co-panelists,
me.
Spamming and Thunderous. We'll be over on Discord now. The link is in the main chat, and we'll go over there and further have a conversation on all kinds of things. So again, thank you very much. And Stops, you can close it down for us.
Right, just before we go, I'd like to say thank you to Smart Cat and Cloud. Thank you for coming back on again, Smart Cat. Always a pleasure. And Cloud, nice to have met you. Hopefully we'll see you again on the show.
Oh,
And Smart Cat, don't let anything discourage you. It's your choice, your decision, and if other people cannot handle that, it's their problem and not yours.
Good
See you
night,
next week.
good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you are.
Thanks, guys. See you next week. Bye.
Bye bye.
Have a good night.
Good night.